It probably started back when I was a kid because I always liked airplanes. And I got a control line in airplanes where you fly around in a circle, did that for a while. Then the ultralight came along in about the 80s, and it started coming on a little bit, got a little interested in that. My son was getting old enough that he was starting to get a little interested in it too. So, and you built everything from plans. Well, when the ultralight thing come around, you could buy a kit, and there were several manufacturers out there, and then put your kit together. Well, that's what he did. He bought a real cheap one, about $3 grand, put it together, and he flew it. And then I kind of got interested in it from there. And then about 1995, this plane came on the market. It actually started life as an instructor plane because two places were not legal ultralight planes. That was in 1990. It was built, and I acquired it in 1995. I went through it, repainted it, and refurbished it a little bit. And I've had it ever since 1995, put different engines and stuff on it. And I used to taxi, to get out and taxi and get the tail up, and then the plane would act different. When the tail was on the ground, you could use the rudder a lot, or your feet. You could use your feet to steer the rudder, but when it got in the air, then you use the tail to steer it. So it responded a little different. And that was the first thing you wanted to do. You wanted to get the tail up, and then you start getting that light feeling, and then you can take off. Well, I taxied like that for several days before I even got the courage to go up. And then one day it just jumped in the air, and I went, well, I'm in the air. Let's go for it. So then get up and fly around for a while. And then landing's another thing too. You know, takeoffs are optional, landings are mandatory. And it's kind of one of those little feelings of excitement. You're gonna, is it gonna crash or whatever, but you know, nothing really happens real fast in an ultralight. It's all pretty slow. You got time to react and do whatever, unless you get real dumb. Well, yeah, I always do kind of check the weather and kind of go, well, it used to kind of be that way. I'd get up and go out and fly first thing in the morning, because that's when it's calm. And then later in the night, I'd fly. But now, sometimes I come out and I don't even open the hangar door up. I just come out to the field and see if there's some old guys out here, and we chew the fat a little bit and go back home. So it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other. It's not like it used to be. It used to be to just kind of live for flying, but now it's something I like to do, but it's not high on my list too much anymore. Well, I'm slowing down now quite a bit, but like I say, I've got it to my son, so he's going to have it for a while. So it'll be there whenever I want to fly, but you know, as long as I'm physically able to do it, because flying's not really that hard. It's not much different than driving a car, except you got that third little plane you got to worry about. You can go right and left, but up and down, you know, it's a little different again. Most of the time, you wake up in the morning and go, oh, it's a good day to go flying. So you come out here and, you know, get the hangar open, get the plane, check the plane out, and make sure there's nothing falling off the day before. Shake the wings, so make sure the wings don't fall off. Then get it out, get it fired up, give it a chance for it to warm up a little bit. Get out in the runway, check which way the wind's coming, taxi downwind and take off and enjoy yourself for about a half an hour.
Yeah, my name's Casey Boyd. I'm the owner of Skydive Iowa. This is a passion for most people that start skydiving. It's definitely a unique job skill, but once you get into it, there's nothing else like it.
When I turned 19, my grandma got me a tandem for my birthday, and I got down and was hooked. So my best friend and I, we spent every dime we had over the next couple of years just jumping, eventually becoming an instructor, and now 11 years and 5,000 jumps later, here we are. The people coming through the door vary, everything from large groups where people may have been kind of peer pressured into coming out to couples looking for an interesting date or just an individual trying to conquer their own fear.
Skydiving is the biggest, I'd say, community in a sport. You know, you become family. It almost sucks you in more and more just because of the camaraderie of skydiving. So it's definitely gotten more of a passion of mine, let alone the family. It becomes a family. So it's just extremely worth every day I've done doing it. It's a lot of fun.
I also met my wife skydiving about 3.5 years ago, and just getting to continue to grow with her and see both of us progress in the sport, but also in our now marriage is pretty special.
I am a 7-day-a-week skydiver. I jump any day the weather's nice, really. It really hasn't changed much in several years. I mean, once you jump every day, it doesn't even feel like work. A lot of people, regret going to work every day to go to their job. I love going to work. It's a unique experience, and to take people on tandems that have never got to do it, to share that kind of experience with them is definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience for sure. Yeah, if you get into skydiving looking to make money, it's not going to happen. Skydiving is more of a passion. Financially, the money is not the goal for most skydivers. It's more of the experience. It's something that we, love to share with people. If we had to choose between taking pay or skydiving, we're still going to choose skydiving. So definitely not about the financials.
You can kind of tell how nervous a person is despite what they say, just with their body language when you're getting them ready. And the first couple seconds out the door of the airplane is when you really get to see their true nature. So it's a lot of fun, very unique. Under canopy, after the free fall's over, you can communicate with them, and in that time is really the most intimate time with the student. Get really their initial reaction, and honestly some of their most heartfelt reaction.
Most people, the thought of skydiving is an eerie feeling, right? To think of jumping out of an airplane. However, the act of it is just the opposite. It's really freeing. You'll never live in the moment the most, right? When you jump out of an airplane, you are just living in that time alone. So my favorite experience with people is to see how scared they are in the door, and then the moment they land, to see how happy they are when they've landed. Not because they're on the ground, just because the experience was so, they loved it. They would do it again in a heartbeat. I've never landed and had a passenger say, I hated that, I will never do it again. They have all been happy. They might not jump again, but they love the experience, right? So I think that's my biggest gratification, is taking somebody that thinks it's going to be terrifying and then showing them that it's really not. It's kind of a euphoric feeling. So
when it comes to jumping out of the plane, it comes very second nature. I've thought about, did I remember to start the dishwasher in free fall, or did I wash this t-shirt today? Thankfully the answer is usually yes to all of those. It's always unique in its own right with the individual student, but the jump itself is not the part that really gets me excited anymore. It's the individuals and their reaction and their experience.
I am so content with skydiving that I don't think I'll really ever get bored with it. So I see myself skydiving until I physically can't anymore. It feels like it slows life down a little bit, right? Normally, you rush through life and everything. When you start skydiving, like I say, you live in that time frame, and when you can start to slow that time frame down and live in that moment, it's just made life a little bit more peaceful, I guess. You're at ease when you skydive, and it's never going to work seems like hard. It doesn't seem like work. You go out, you just have fun, you enjoy it. I'd do it every day for the rest of my life if I could.
I want to be jumping when I am in my 80s. I want to be jumping until I can't walk anymore. I would love to take my children skydiving. I want to continue taking friends skydiving and family skydiving. But really the bucket list is I want to do this for as long as possible. It's just fun. I can't imagine life not doing this or not having it part of my life. You see people come and go, and they just lose interest in the sport, but I don't see that ever happening for me. I I may slow down at times and I may pick it back up and jump harder, but even after stepping down as a competitive skydiver from 1,300 jumps a year to 200 jumps a year, I still love every moment of it, and I don't see that changing.
About skydiving, I just want skydiving people to experience it. You know, it's like I said, it's not a financial money maker, but the experience that you get to share with people, it's bonding. Right? When you take somebody skydiving, you create a bond with that person, and it kind of goes a little farther than just when they leave here, it's over. You know, they trust you, they get a lot of respect for you, and that's gratifying in itself. Just knowing that, you know, you've done your job well enough that people trust you and would like to come back and do it again.
You know, I'm not the best skydiver there ever was, and I never will be, and that's fine, but I do it as safely as I can, and I have a lot of fun doing it. I've made a lot of great friends in the sport, and I know that that will continue. So I hope that, again, I'm jumping when I'm really old so that I can see my legacy.
If you have an opportunity to skydive, try it. Right? You can never explain it, you know, until you do it. And then even hearing somebody explain what they just experienced isn't gonna ever really fill it in until you give it a shot. You might not ever want to do it again. It might be one and done thing, but at least give it a shot, try it out. Again, anywhere, right? Just skydiving in general is worth trying once in your life, for sure.
It started way back in 1976, the first time I saw a hot air balloon. I had been living in the DC, Alexandria, Virginia area. I'd been working there. Then I moved back to Iowa and I saw a hot air balloon land actually in a street in Cedar Rapids up against a building. And then later, probably like 6 months later, I saw this balloon land out in a field, and my little nephew was with me, and we were keeping our distance, and the pilot kept motioning us to come over to him. And then I started crewing for him, and you know, then later he taught me how to fly, and later we got married.
Hot air ballooning has so many different facets to it. It's so much of a community involvement kind of a sport and activity. You can do paid rides, you can fly for fun, you can do competition, which I really enjoy. You can also do a lot of things on the ground like parades and glows and stationary type events. So it's a really interesting hobby.
I grew up in Andrew, Iowa, which at that time was 350 people. And there was a little park in the center of town, and the water tower was there. And when I was like 10, 11 years old, I would climb up this water tower and I'd sit underneath the platform. And I would look at everything. That was like my safe place. That was my escape. I could hear my mother closing the screen door, and I could hear her calling my name. And when you fly, when you get up high enough, there's a little bit of distortion to the sound. And so the first time I ever went for balloon ride, it blew me away because it was that same distortion. And so, you know, being 10, 11 years old, I was already looking at my little world from an elevated platform. It's just amazing just to look out and just see everything. There are times that I'm up there, especially if I'm up maybe like 3,000 or 4,000 feet, and I feel like I can get out and go for a walk. And I had this, I sometimes have to really talk myself into staying in the basket because it just seems like it's just so peaceful and everything, and I can just go for a walk. When I was crewing before I was a pilot, and I would look at their eyes and their face before they take off, and some of them were like panicked, you know? And then when they land and see the transformation was really amazing. Well, now being a pilot, I don't get to see that big change, but what I get to see is like people in the basket and their white knuckle, and then slowly they relax, and I get to experience that part of it. So it's a rewarding thing for me.
It's a great hobby. It involves my family rather than taking me away from my family like a lot of hobbies can. After the flight, me and the crew, we hang out for dinner. You know, we'll go to events together and hang out for a weekend or a whole week, and meeting other pilots that share in the same experiences and hobbies. It's just a lot of fun.
Making money in Iowa flying hot air balloons is almost impossible. And I mean, the way I do it also, because I take my crew out to eat after we finish flying. Even if we don't fly, I mean, if we go out and we hang out to see if the winds will drop and things like that, I still take them out to eat. They are like a big part of my family. And so, you know, I take care of them and have fun with them.
What happens a lot of times is the crew. So the crew's down there chasing us around in my blue truck, right? And they have a lot of fun with that aspect of it too, because it's kind of a challenge to get where we're going before we do. Especially as you can see, we're like going all kinds of directions right now, so they're like scurrying around down here. Typically when we go to dinner, it's the crew that's making fun of the pilots with all of the things and the trouble that we've gotten into.
So one of my main objects is to get some of my crew so they get their commercial license. The contract I have with the bank that I fly with is for 2 more years, and then I know they'll want to renew it. I want these guys to take that over so that I can pick and choose when I want to fly. And I also had a brand new balloon built this year for me for fun. It has a dog on one side, a golden retriever, a cat on the other, the sun on one side and the moon and the stars on the other, and I want to just go out and fly. So if I can get these guys trained and they can get their commercial license and have enough hours, they can finish the contract that I have with the bank. So that's what my goal is. So I have no idea how much longer I'll fly until I'm senile, I guess.
I would say that hot air ballooning is one of those sports that is really, really fun. It inspires a lot of people, and it's very much misunderstood by the community. And so a lot of times when you have balloons that are landing in yards and people are confused by why are they not landing at airports, it's totally normal, right? We launch from parks, we land in people's yards, and as a result, we have a lot of community involvement. You'll have 100 kids from the neighborhood come out when you land and help you pack up, and they just get a thrill out of it. If you have not had a chance to experience hot air ballooning, go find a balloon pilot, go find someone in your area who does it, and give it a try. Even just go crew for them or hang out, drive around and chase them, and I think you'll get introduced to a world that's a lot of fun.
I would like everybody to take a hot air balloon ride because, you know, you're looking at the world from a different perspective, and it's such a gentle experience and such a peaceful experience that I would like everybody in the whole world to take a ride. People should really follow their passions. You know, so many people are driven by money, and I know that you need money, and money is, you know, important, but I also think people need to enjoy what they do and follow your passion. I think it'll make your life much more rewarding.
Dave and I both grew up at Algona, Iowa. I went to school at a small town north of there, and he grew up and went to school in Algona, so we didn't meet until high school years. But he would tell me many stories about him as he was a young boy. He always loved airplanes, and he had an interest at a young age.
Dad, as Mom said, had an early interest in aviation. His aunt Barbara, my great aunt Barbara, was the first woman, I believe, in the Iowa Air Corps to get her pilot's license, and so she got it in Fort Dodge before World War II, and so she gave Dad his first airplane ride when he was maybe 4 years old, and I think that helped spark his aviation bug.
He had a Wizz Air motorbike, and he rode all over town, and he would often end up at the airport because he knew one of the men out there who was a pilot and flew. And he thought, if I go out there when he's there, maybe I can get a ride in his airplane. And he just had an interest in airplanes ever since he was young. And then he met other interested people in flying, and he joined a flying club in Cedar Rapids. And he went with 2 other men, and the 3 of them together bought a Luscombe, which is a little 2-seater airplane, held 2 people. Eventually, one of the men moved away, and so they bought his share of the airplane. It wasn't long before in the the other partner of the airplane decided he didn't fly that much and he needed his money to help buy a house, so he sold out his half and Dave ended up owning the whole airplane. But it was nice it came in steps that way. And Dave got the bug, he wanted to build an airplane. And he has always wanted to do things a little different than other people, so he looked at all the designs and the projects he could build, and he decided on the Flagler scooter. He started building it in our basement.
Some of my earlier memories were of him building his airplane, and I can remember him taking out the bedroom window and getting it out of the house and building it in the garage and driving it up and down the road without the wings on it. And the neighbors thought he was some crazy guy that lived up the road tooling around in his little airplane project.
The scooter, he flew a lot. When the weather was nice, he'd come in the house for work, say, okay, I'm going to fly, and then he'd go out and fly, and he said, that's how I can relax. I like to just check on the neighborhood, he said. He would only maybe fly 15, 20 minutes, or maybe half hour, depends on the weather and what else was going on. But he enjoyed flying, and he flew that quite a bit.
And he would fly over our house in Midway, and if he needed gas or he needed sandwiches or he needed anything, he would pull back the throttle, and because there's no doors, he'd just yell, "Bring me some peanut butter sandwiches," and pushing the throttle, and we'd all get the sandwiches and pile in the car and go over to the airport, and he'd eat a sandwich and then go fly again. So I remember him flying around. In fact, some of his friends talk about it today too. He would fly over to somebody's house and circle around until they'd come out, and he'd pull back the throttle and say, "Hello, Keith." So that's one of my earlier memories.
Anyway, he enjoyed it. It was good, and it was really special to him.
And one of the few times I flew with my dad, I remember I was landing, and he started, backseat driving. You're a little high, you're a little fast, you're a little low, and I finally looked over and I said, "Hey, who's the pilot here?" But we would fly together. Usually he would fly when we flew together, and then we would occasionally, when I was flying the club's Cub that I had, it was about the same speed as his scooter, and so we occasionally would fly side by side, him and his scooter and me and the Cub, and so that was a great memory. They say that once you fly, you're always looking to the sky, and if I walk by a window at work, I just instinctively look up to kind of see what's the wind, what's the weather, would this be a good day to fly, right? Because you're always thinking about when's the next time I get to fly. And my wife knows, she's like my mom. She doesn't really like to fly, but she knows I do. So she's very supportive of it. And when I say, hey, it's going to be good weather tomorrow, she knows I'm going to go fly. It is my way of relaxing. It's my way to just kind of be away from everything that's going on Earth, if you will, and kind of be in your own space. And I find it very, very calming and very refreshing. Well, I'll tell you what, people who fly love nothing more than to share with other people. So if somebody wants to fly, has interest in flying, find a pilot and ask, and they'll talk your arm off about it. They'll give you a ride. We love nothing more than introducing other people to aviation and seeing somebody, go through those steps and become a pilot themselves. Ask questions, seek people out, go to the airport. They're not as accessible anymore in big cities. They have fences around them, but small cities, they're accessible. You can get in and walk around, go talk to somebody, and chances are you're going to get an airplane ride, and they'll mentor you through the process of becoming a pilot if you're interested.
After a while, he couldn't fly any longer, and I said, "What should I do with a scooter?" And he says, "I don't know. It could probably go to a museum because there's no other planes like it around." And then David, my son, was at the airport, and he overheard him talking about they needed an airplane, a small airplane. And he says, "Oh, I might have something for you." I donated it to the airport, and I didn't realize it, but the airport sponsors Nubo. And they said, more people would see it there, would it be okay to hang it there? And I says, they didn't really have a place at the airport to hang it. I says, sure, it's your airplane. Do whatever you want. just let it stay in Cedar Rapids. So I've only been back to see it twice since it's been down there. But for, I don't know, 30 or 40 years, I'd say, kids, be careful of the scooter. Don't hit the wings.
So aviation really has a way of infiltrating everything and becoming a real part of your life. So yeah, but it's worth it. And now my wife is an accountant. She will argue that sometimes, but it's been a very fulfilling part of my life, just like Dad's, and it becomes part of who you are. And I can't imagine living without it.
I don't really enjoy flying that much, and I thought Dave did his thing, I did my thing. He flew off the runway, and I got to mow it. So he loved music. I remember him. He played a trumpet, played a guitar. He sang songs about his love of flying and Oshkosh. And every night they had a large group meeting where everybody who was camping went to it, because when it's dark you don't do much except sit around your campfire. So we go to this big general meeting, and they had entertainment, and Dave got to sing at Oshkosh with his guitar, and I have a recording of him singing his Oshkosh songs. He just was always doing things. So he did a lot in his life. I wish he'd lived a little longer, but that wasn't to be. I don't know, his one interesting story, and this probably shouldn't be in your video, but before he died, he said, do you think there's any way you could put my scooter airplane at the cemetery when I'm buried during this burial type? And I says, I don't think so, Dave. And he says, no, that wouldn't work out. But it meant that much to him that that's what he was known for, was his airplane, and it's on our gravestone is a picture of his airplane. So I says, that probably means more to you than I do. And he says, no, but it means a lot to me.
I decided to build me an aeroplane. I decided to build me an airplane, and I'll do it without any pain. I looked over aircraft materials, wood, aluminum, steel. I'd use just one to get things done, let me tell you how I feel. I'd use 4130 forever, that's the stuff for me. Any other frame just ain't the same as far as I can see. I love to cut and weld and file, steel tubes there for me, with a steel tube strut beneath me, but I'm as happy as can be. I've made attempts with other stuff, and I've tried most everything. Made a pass at fiberglass, but with me steel's the king. The melting of the welding rod and the hissing of the flame raise me to such ecstasy, I sing and shout the claim that it's 4130 forever. That's the stuff for me. Any other frame just ain't the same as far as I can see. I love to cut and weld and file, steel tubes there for me, with a steel tube strut beneath me, but I'm as happy as can be. I'm as happy as can be.